Question number one is how many dental schools should I apply to? Like, what's a good number?
Oh, starting off with some fire, right? Well, first of all, you guys, if you didn't know, there's almost 70 dental schools now. 70. I think there was, and Malachi and Ansley can uh, also chime in with regards to this. It's about 66, and over the last 2 or 3 years, there's been 3 or 4 that have either just started, implemented, or just took in their first class, and or there are a couple schools coming, like Arkansas. There's a new dental school coming in Arkansas. There's still some new talk about a second dental school in Virginia. There's a new school in California, as if California needed another dental school, because they have about 4 already, if not maybe even 5. So there's a lot of schools, right? As you are looking at your schools, one of the recommendations will be based off of, or how many schools you should apply to. It should be based off of what you're looking for, right? I would strongly not recommend just applying to 30 and 40 dental schools just to apply and hope that where you apply to sticks, right? Because many schools are public, many schools are private. And with those two distinctions comes a lot more money as far as tuition. And there's considerations for in-state and out-of-state students as well. So you really need to look at, or at least develop a list of things that you're looking for in schools before you start trying to figure out how many schools I should apply to. And I want to add to that, you know, that number may depend on your preference and things that you envision in the next 10 years, right? 4 years at dental school, maybe a year or two in residency, and then you're going to be launching your careers immediately after that. So some questions you need to ask before you pick a number of schools to apply to is, where do you envisioning yourself practicing in the next 10 years? What factors are important, or what things are important to you with regards to schools? Big classes, smaller classes, as far as, like, you know, NYU has over 300 students per class. Right after that is Tufts University up in Boston, 225 or so students in a class, versus schools like a Harvard, where there's like 40 people, or even a Meharry, that's maybe 60 or 70 people. All those types of things. These are the types of things you have to consider and more when you're looking at schools, so that you can determine how many schools that fit your list of things you're looking for, how many schools you come up with. Student Dr. Malachi and student Dr. Ansley, what do you guys say?
Well, I have when I was thinking about this question, it reminded me of when I was applying. Obviously, I had a list, like you were just talking about, Dr. Darwin, and my list consisted of 4 sentences for each school, right? And those sentences included reasonable reasons as to why I wanted to apply to this school. And if I couldn't come up with 4 sentences of a reasonable reasons of why I wanted to apply to that school, I scratched it off of my list. So an example would be like, if you want to live in the city or in like a rural community, then you'll write a sentence about that. Or if you're considering time in clinic, because I know some schools give students exposure to clinic coming in first year and maybe assisting or something. And in other schools, you may have to wait second year or third, or to your third year to get into the clinic. So considering things like of those natures were included in my 4 sentences that I wrote for every single school, that helped me narrow down my list.
That was a great technique, student Dr. Malachi. I kind of went a different route, but similar to what Dr. Hayes said, is, you know, where do you see yourself, you know, ultimately living? And also, where do you see yourself being for the next 4 years of dental school? So for me, it was I didn't have any family on the west coast of the country or anywhere down south, so I was pretty limited right off the bat. I wanted to stay somewhere in the Midwest or Northeast if possible. So I think you just want to be a little bit selfish in knowing where you want to live or ultimately end up, and also where you feel like you would be most comfortable. I knew that if I went somewhere out west, that it'd be difficult for me to go back home if I needed to during breaks, because obviously flights are expensive. And I think what Malachi also suggested is, definitely take into consideration the curriculum at the schools that you're applying to. So, for instance, if you know in your heart that you want to probably end up doing general dentistry, maybe a school that doesn't have every specialty added, maybe a consideration for you. Not saying that other schools don't, I guess, train you in a way to become a competent dentist, because they all do, they're all accredited. But, just take those things into consideration. Like at the University of Michigan, there's like part of our curriculum is built in to like do research. So if research isn't something that you necessarily want to do, maybe look at schools who are more clinically heavy based. But with that being said, just open your horizon and also like research every school, and don't leave any doors closed.
And I just wanted to add to that, because I know the question is also related to the number. I know you guys want to hear a number, right? How many? Dr. Darwin, the question is, how many? How many should I consider? So I will tell you now, this is 20 years ago. I'm not gonna, actually it's a little bit more than 20 years ago. But I had a preference for the University of Maryland because I was living in Maryland at the time. And I also had like 4 classmates from undergrad that just so had, actually 5 classmates from undergrad that were actually at Maryland. And Maryland at the time did not require a prerequisite called organic chemistry. So Maryland was number 1 of like 5 schools that I applied to for those reasons. So I had 5 schools. Malachi and Ansley, how many schools did you guys have on your list?
I ended up applying to 10 schools, and I will honestly say that should probably be the max. I wouldn't personally apply to more than 10 schools, especially if you have like a solid GPA and a pretty decent DAT score. And I'm quite sure we'll get into that discussion later, but I'll say no more than 10 and potentially no less than 3.
Yes, and for me, I applied to 7 schools. I can't really put a number on how many not to apply to, or how few to apply to. Again, it's just based on who you are as an applicant. But I had friends anywhere from applying to 3 schools all the way up to like 15.